Hello Internet, welcome to a special bonus sort of field test video. Kaz, what bike are we riding today?
We've got the Rocky Mountain Instinct.
Now, Can you tell us exactly what's going on today?
Yeah, so we rode this Instinct up in Whistler, and our general conclusion was that the shock tune didn't feel appropriate for the bike. We think this bike has a lot of potential.
Yes.
Geometry looks good, paper it all looks good, and we just weren't really blown away by the shock tune. So we want to do a little more experimentation because we didn't think that one factor should totally write off the bike.
Totally. I mean, I actually sort of did the written part of the review, and for me, I probably actually became a bit too focused on the shock, but it was hard to talk about what could be the really great geometry when that shock tune was so heavily at the forefront of my mind when riding it. So now, it's an important question, how a bike or a bike brand develops a shock tune. How is it done?
Almost exactly what we're going to do today. Basically, they speak with the suspension manufacturer, kind of, send them the basics of the bike, often the kinematic charts, and that manufacturer will send them a few different shocks to try out. So they'll take it to their test track, and it's really boring. They just do the same track over and over and try out the different tunes and see which one they think would work best for the broadest range of riders.
Totally. I mean, sometimes I think that there's this idea that, the OE tune, the original equipment tune, is the exact same as what the pros ride and stuff, but it's not. It's basically a preference, and that's a really important word because our preference might not align with your preference, and it might not align with the Rockier preference, but we thought today it'd be a really good opportunity to ride and see if, for our preference and our terrain, we can unlock some of the potential of the bike. For kind of full disclosure, I'm probably more of an outlier in terms of my demands for my suspension. I like lots of compression, a very fast rebound tune. I spoke to Matt, and he says he likes to run kind of the recommended damping settings, but sometimes a little bit higher on the spring. Dario is quite adjustable and pragmatic. How would you describe your preferences?
I'd say I'm actually more towards the lighter side of compression tunes typically, because I'm a bit lighter as a rider. I'm 160 pounds, which in the way that they kind of set shocks up for, that's a bit on the lighter side. So sometimes I'll end up opening the compression, damping, just to get at that traction they want. It's usually slippery and wet when I'm riding, so I don't like a ton of damping, but there also are times where there's not enough. But overall, I'd say I'm on the lighter side of things for damping.
Which should be great. So we've got the standard shock on there at the moment, and then we've got three shocks provided to us by Fox, which are basically the exact same, but because these are model year 25, there's a different thing in terms of the pressure balancing. So what we're going to do is we've basically got the bike as a stock now. Kaz are going to warm up, kind of remember how the bike feels, and then we've got three shocks now to make it fair, because these have very, very, very slightly different internals because of the model year. We've got three different shocks at the same dimension and basically the same as this one here, with three varying compression tunes. We're going to run them at the exact same spring with the exact same volume spacer configuration, and I'm going to sort them out for Kaz. He's not going to know what he's riding, and he's going to talk about what his feelings are, what his preferences are, and as we move towards the end of the day, describe what he would run if it was his bike.
Exactly.
And from there, hopefully we can unlock some of the potential of this bike and also explain and understand the idea of shock tune preference.
Just going to get reacquainted with this bike. Haven't ridden it in a few weeks, and it currently has the stock shock tune, the one that we weren't super big fans of at the field test. So take it down this little test track, just kind of remember how it was. Yeah, it's the word we used before, is busy. I just feel like it's moving a lot back there. And it's rough, but it's not that rough. So I'd say more movement than I'd like. Yeah,
Eyes watering a bit there, Kaz.
Yeah, I left my glasses down here.
So Kaz, first lap done, and you familiarise yourself with the bike.
Yeah.
Just to sum up, what were the kind of, in broad strokes, what's going on?
It's how I remembered. It just feels, we've used the word before, busy. It feels like it's using more travel initially than I want it to. Like, this isn't the roughest track. It's got some good chunky bits. Like, it's a trail bike track. This is tamer than a lot of stuff we were riding in the bike park, because speed's a little slower, a little flatter, but I still feel like it's just like that initial part's just like moving a lot, where you kind of want it to sit up a little bit higher.
Yes.
And that's with it in the middle of the compression setting. We're just doing, these have 10 clicks of adjustment, so just doing it at 5 just to be, because ideally you want the bike, running nose. Ideally you want the bike to have a range of adjustment, so someone that wants less compression should be able to, or more. So like right now, if I was going to do another lap with this, I would increase the compression even further, which for being a lighter rider is not something I think I'd want to have to do.
So fair, because someone could be riding the same trail at the same speed, but just be 10 or 20 pounds heavier on the same spring or whatever, you know what I mean? Now, do you want to have more riding on that, or do you want to start going to this blind testing?
I think I'll do one more lap just to get used to it, just to really make sure I got a feel for it, and then we'll be good.
Perfect. So here we have three identical shocks. They're all Kashima, but let's face it, that's not going to make too much difference in the real world. So they all have compression tunes that are different. So this is a CS40. We've got a CS30 and a CS50. We'll all be running the exact same spring, and it's important to note that they have the RL50 rebound tune, which is the same tune that's on that Rocky at the moment, because that actually felt, really appropriate for the shock.
Warm up lap 2 on the Instinct. This little chunky bit.
Ooh, here he is.
Here I am.
So you're now
I'm
100%
acquainted.
remembering what the bike felt like?
Yep, it's as loud as I remember.
Now we've got a bit of, how's the trail looking today? Grippy, slippy? It's
Grippy. It's really perfect, actually. It was windy last night and then a lot of blowdown, but I cleared it all off. Now it's like really good dirt. So
Perfect. Well, here I have the first shock,
all right.
and we're going to put it on, and you're going to go for a lap,
Yeah.
and we're just going to go from there.
Sounds good.
So Kaz has just gone up on the firmest compression tune. Now, in my opinion, or in my experience, when you have a bike that's very progressive, there's basically more variation of how much mechanical advantage the axle has over the shock, depending where it is on the stroke. So at the start of the stroke, there's simply more leverage being enacted on the shock than towards the end, and that's what makes it very easy to get going at the initial part to the ramp up and resistance at the end. So in my experience, bikes that are like that tend to cope better with more compression tuning, or more compression damping, so they have more resistance at that initial part of the stroke, so they don't feel like they're falling until it hits that wall of support. That's not necessarily, it's not universally, exactly what everyone wants, but that's my preference and that's my experience of it.
All right, mystery shock number 1, run 1. Don't know what tune is on the shock. Let's see how it feels. It just feels like standing up more. Just like, oh yeah, I think I like how this feels. Feels a little better.
Kazi boy,
Hello.
how was that?
I like that better.
Like that better?
Just feels a little more supported. I don't know what tune is on it, but just feel like I was standing up a little higher.
Yeah.
Even climbing, I noticed that too. Like it's not wanting to stick quite as deep. So
We noticed that with the, I mentioned that in the review a lot, like climbing, grip's really important, small bump, but it felt like you sat quite low and almost like your ride height was almost a bit too low.
Yeah, so this just kind of feels like you have that little bit of a platform.
Wow.
Like again, I don't know what tune this is, but it feels better.
I will be so stoked if we can unleash what is a good foundation of a good bike in there.
Yeah, because the Geo's good. Like you can go fast, like it's holding lines well. Yeah, like I used a decent amount of travel, but not all of it. We mentioned it feels like a pretty good ramp up in the end, but there's not really any big hits. I wouldn't have expected to use all the travel on this trail.
It's appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, whatever tune that is, that's a good starting place.
Do you want to have another one, or do you want me to put you onto a different shock?
Let's do a different shock.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can always come back to things if I want to do some back to back.
Sweet.
What's up, Pinkbike? This is me saying that I think this is a great idea. I'm just on a bike ride and I ran into them.
I mean, what's cool is that because basically compression tunes are rated, we will just tell what in our opinion felt really good, and we can just say, and then should someone have the same bike at home, they can go for it. But it is a game of preferences. I was talking about that earlier in the video, but not one, it's almost just like an opinion in a way, and we have our opinion, which we're entitled to, and Rocky are entitled to their opinion, and people at home are entitled to their opinion.
Yeah, every bike company has some sort of preference on how they like their shocks to feel, and I think that is a generally good rule, but it's not the end all be all for the consumer. I think I kind of touched on this earlier this year with the Altitude, another Rocky. I was able to get along with the stock tune, but then I, out of curiosity, tried it with a couple shades heavier, and it was far more to my preference. And one of the representatives from the company in that review did a good job of saying, if and when you get this shock serviced, you can just ask for a heavier compression tune. And it is that simple. Like if you're doing service at home, it's a bit more involved, but any good suspension tuner could do that for you.
Okay, mystery shock number 2. right away, it feels kind of like we're back where we started. Like a little, yeah, it's just sitting in deeper. There's a little less compression than the last one, I think. Let's see. Back to the busy feeling. Yeah, I feel like it's going deeper in its travel. You just don't really have it. It's just not standing up as tall. Yeah, I'd say it's pretty similar to the stock feeling.
Oh my goodness.
Hello.
How was that?
I think it feels like this first tune. It's really similar, like almost back to the busy feeling. Yeah, so it feels like back to a lighter damping tune on it. So some of the rolly, pumpier stuff, you're just not sitting up as high. Some of the corners, you still feel like you're sitting deeper.
Okay, cool.
That'd be my guess.
And so it feels, light, almost
light.
overactive.
Just moving a lot, even on the climbs, so it kind of sits a little bit deeper. So yeah, I would want a little more support.
Amazing.
For this tune.
Okay, well, let's go to the third and final tune.
Yeah.
And then we'll just back to back.
Sweet.
Got a dyno plug to drive out shock hardware.
Did all my dyno plugs end up somewhere after field test?
This is a pen. I don't know what this is.
I brought a bag of dyno plugs to the field test, and 100% of them disappeared. I don't know where they went.
Okay, we're up to mystery shock tune number 3.
So Kaz,
Yeah.
feelings on that shock setup?
So it felt pretty good. I think that the one before felt like the busiest, most like the stock tune, which I don't get along with. This one, like, definitely a little more supple than the first one. But just talking about this one, yeah, it's kind of a good, like, neutral middle ground. Like, I could be happy with this, I think. I think there's, like, we're in the middle of the compression setting, so I think you can go up a little bit or down a little bit. But yeah, it didn't feel too wild. Definitely still fairly active, but nothing crazy to me.
Okay.
And again, we're riding this track more, so I could be more comfortable, all of that. But like this one felt like, kind of like a more of a middle ground than anything on the extremes.
So do you think this is the middle shock in terms of the
I mean, I
compression?
think I'd like to get back on the one from 2 ago
Okay.
and see, because I think that's my favorite so far.
Okay.
And I think there's range on that one too, because again, we're running them in the middle of the compression, so like people that want lighter could open up. But I think that one felt the best as far as like matching the character of the bike, like sits up. But yeah, I think people would be pretty happy with this one as well.
Okay.
This is the second lap on first of the aftermarket shocks. Look comfier, like it's still good traction, but I can stay on line a little better. I think it's funny how it puts me on a little different line than the other ones.
How was that?
Yeah, I think that's my favorite still.
Is that your favorite?
Yeah.
So we've done some blind back-to-back testing, again using the same pressure and the same volume adjusters inside the shock. Kaz preferred the shock with the most damping, and now we're doing some back-to-back with the stock setup. He knows the track, so what does the OE tune feel like against the preferred tune? Then the important question is this bike better for it? And have any of Kaz's opinions on how the rocky rides changed now that we've had a little fettle with the shock tune.
Favorite mystery tune, final-ish lap, probably, maybe. So many laps, but this one's still my favorite for whatever reason. Even climbing, felt like I stood up a little higher. Yeah, it doesn't really feel harsh, but there's a good feel to it.
Normally when you see videos of people shock testing, they're in some massive truck with a Starlink and a cappuccino machine. I'm so cold.
Yeah, we need some warm food and drinks and things. But yeah, I think I did 8 laps maybe.
Yeah.
A bunch of laps, back to back,
Many,
trying
yeah.
different ones. And most of it, or all of it was blind because I didn't know which tune I was. I only knew when I was going back to the base tune.
And so Was your preferred aftermarket tune better than the OE tune?
I would say yes.
What was different?
Just more support in general, even on the climbs. Like the climb to go to this little downhill test loop is fairly mellow, but there's one little rocky steppy section. I could feel while I was hitting pedals with the stock tune, I wasn't hitting my pedals with the one that has more support. Just that little bit additional, like keeping me up higher in the travel, meant that I wasn't going as deep while climbing. And then descending, same thing. Like I'll go off a drop or go through a chattery section, and I felt like I was more like kind of in your upright attack position rather than getting sucked down and kind of like pulled into the ground. It's kind of hard to put into words, but I'd say just more support, something to push against, a platform basically that you want for if you're going a little quicker, like coming into corners. If it feels like you're already used all your travel, you're sitting too deep, it's hard to kind of like get out of the corner. So with the more support, you can kind of really like going back and forth felt better.
And totally, and sometimes, you know, we spoke about it in the reviews, but there is a sort of balancing act between the difference of the rear wheel feel like it's happy to come into its stroke, or your body mass falling. And once that falling, as you alluded to, especially on the entrance into features or corners, if you're searching for kind of grip or weight distribution through your hips as you're trying to turn, it can be quite unsettling. So yeah, the $1 million question, have we made the bike better?
I'd say so. Yeah, like, you know, we keep talking about the geometry being really good, and I think the geometry is comfortable. It's, you know, adjustable too. So I think with this shock, it does feel better. At least this shock tune, same shock we had before, just a different tune. It does feel better. So I think there's potential to kind of unlock it. Be curious. You could probably even, we talked about doing different, like a Float X2 or something like an even bigger volume shock might help a little bit. Just get that more damping, more air in there. That could help. So I think that, yeah, there's room to make this a better feeling bike.
And if we had our time again, and if this was the bike we reviewed during field test, and for the record, I think we should review the bikes as they come.
Oh yeah, for sure. This isn't something we're going to do for every bike, because it's,
Where does it end?
yeah, as you buy it off the shelf would be how most people get their bike. They're going to ride it like that. They don't want to right away turn around and spend money to get it retuned or a whole different shock or that type of thing.
And also, I mean, I think it's also worth noting, I mean, we're both really lucky. We live with amazing trail networks on our doorstep. Some people don't actually live that close to the trails, and so it's a bit disheartening to be like, oh, if you drive 3 hours to go there and then set up your tune. So I think it is important that off the shelf, that's the bike we review. But if this was the OE tune, do you think it would have fared differently in our field test, or how we perceived it?
I mean, I think it'd do a little bit better, but it's not a night and day thing where all of a sudden I'm like, this is the best bike. This is it. Because I mean, going back to that Spectral we talked a lot about, that bike is so good. It's also quiet. This bike still is a louder bike compared to that Spectral or compared to that Bronson. It's kind of in a different category. So yeah, I think it's a good all-around trail bike. It has a lot of potential, but it still wouldn't be the one I picked to like ride the rowdiest stuff or to really like, I don't know, just get after it. It's a little bit more trail bike.
In some ways, that's kind of making good on because one of the interesting things about this bike was it's actually one of the lightest weight bikes on test, and it was really caught between two places of, and so for people that want more of, you know, like a razor blade of a trail bike that feels a bit more versatile on the true trail focused stuff, maybe it opens up its potential.
Exactly, and we have that adjustment. So I think in the shorter headset setting, shorter chainstay, you can really make it kind of like light and lively feeling trail bike, and then with that improved compression damping, I think then you get the bike that's kind of for those flowier trails, like slapping corners and hit some jumps, that type of thing. That's where this bike could be really well.
I have to admit, I am super envious of you being able to do this test today. The trails in Squamish kind of got snowed out. But so today we're recording this before, just at the end of, as we're releasing videos, and we're going to record a podcast on Monday to come out next week, which will be in 3 days from the release of the video. But I'm going to try and do something similar at home, because I'm really curious, because on paper I was really excited to ride this bike, and I think that sometimes we're lucky we get to back all these bikes, and we say, oh, it's this, and it sounds all doom and gloom. It's really hard because bikes are so good, and maybe I don't. Anyway, I think you can see what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're just we're nitpicking because it's our job. A lot of people might not even notice this thing, but we're lucky enough. We ride 8 bikes back to back to back to back, or even today, being able to grab 3 different shock tunes, ride a nice section of trail that's perfect for testing, and be able to do that. Like, it's nice, but it is also we are spoiled in that regard too.
So, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much to Fox to be able to supply these shocks at such short notice, and yeah, it's been cool. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to ride the bike. And of course, get in the comments to let us know if you've had any experience with tuning your own shock, and whether you think that aftermarket shock tunes like this is something that'd be worth considering on your bike. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.